Welcome everyone to this week's Masterclass episode. We have a familiar face with us and a big contributor to the group, my friend Kurt Mueller. He was one of our first guests for these Masterclass Friday episodes. And we did get a question from a weekly Wednesday Q&A post from one of our members, Michael. And he had asked, he would love feedback or suggestions on building his initial warm market. And of course, any other advice that we can provide for someone just entering into the industry and things that we've learned over the course of our career. So that's what Kurt and I are going to be covering today. But Kurt, awesome to have you. Thank you so much for joining again.
Absolutely. Great to be here, man.
And I know you said when we weren't recording that it was really hot down south, so I appreciate you throwing on your jacket still for the call.
Most definitely. I don't have any pants on, but I got the jacket.
Okay, perfect. You gotta stay cool somehow.
That's right.
Awesome. So, you and I were talking briefly before we started recording, and you had alluded to the fact that based on your location changes and the moves throughout your career, both in geography and in company affiliation, you kind of had to restart a few different times in your career. So that's part of the reason why, we thought it was relevant to bring you on for this episode. Is not only do you have experience starting off, but you have experience starting off a few times because you kind of hit the reset button a handful of times with those moves and transitions. So I guess just let's riff off of each other. We're going to start off by just asking you, what are the 2 or 3 or 4 tips that you have for someone brand new starting off in the career to guarantee their success?
So if you're brand new starting off, first thing I would tell you to do is go build meaningful relationships with referral partners. And what I mean by that is folks that are CPAs, attorneys, mortgage bankers, property and casualty agents, anybody that's going to be seeing clients' financial information and has the ability to refer to you, it would be a good target. Bankers as well. And so simply just building those relationships, you're not trying to sell them anything. You're going there, and I'm very upfront when I sit down with them and just tell them, look, here's why I'm here. I'd love for you to be a part of my referral team, and we have a conversation and we figure out if we're a good fit.
So before we move past referral partners, I want to kind of dive deep into that so people can walk away from here and know what to say in those conversations and what sort of the agenda should be and the goal and how you actually reach out to someone. Like, what if someone doesn't know a CPA? So how are you interacting with those people? How are you getting that appointment? Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Sure, absolutely. So my language is pretty much the same no matter who I'm calling. If I call a CPA or a property and casualty agent or a mortgage banker, it's, hey, this is Kurt Mueller. I see we've got some mutual connections on LinkedIn. You don't know me. I don't know you. You're in the people meeting business just like me. Let's grab a cup of coffee next week. I don't do mortgages, or I don't do, wills, or fill in the blank. But my clients need that, and I need good, trustworthy referral partners. So that's the reason I'm calling, and that's why I want to sit down with them. And if they balk at that, then they're not a good referral partner anyway.
Right.
And so you just save yourself a meeting and you move on to the next one.
Awesome. So you then go to that appointment, and in your mind, obviously you don't show up with a, literally an agenda, right? But like in your mind, what sort of steps are you going through to cultivate that relationship, build trust? And on the flip side, what are you trying to pick up on with them to figure out if you even want to work with them? Because it's not like you're desperate to the point where you'll work with any advisor, or any referral partner. So it's almost like an interview for them as well. So how are you positioning that conversation?
So I do a little bit of research. It probably takes me 5, maybe 10 minutes before the meeting, going on LinkedIn, Facebook, social media, just making a mental note of who they're connected to, maybe where they went to college, just, some stuff to talk about. If they're on Facebook or LinkedIn, I'll send them an invite to connect before the meeting, And then when I get there, it's the typical 5 to 10 minute small talk. How long you've been in business? Do you have any kids? Do you have a family? What do you like to do? That kind of stuff, building rapport.
Yeah.
And then I just transition into, hey, look, here's what we talked about on the phone. I talked about coming here, sitting down with you and learning more about your business, figuring out how we can help each other grow. Are you trying to grow? First, easy question. are you trying to grow? If the answer is, well, not really, I don't care, then hey, great, enjoy the cup of coffee. Like, we're probably not a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just that simple. Most of the, very rarely does that happen, but if it does, I would suggest just ending the meeting and going about your way. So it's really taking most of the time. I'm asking all the questions. I'm getting a better understanding of who their ideal prospects are, how long they've been in business. If they're a home and auto insurance agent, I ask specific questions like, hey, do you recommend umbrella coverage? If it's a mortgage banker, hey, how do you recommend a 15 versus a 30? Tell me about your mortgage process.
So you're looking for answers on where their expertise lies so that you can be confident in sending your clients over there.
Absolutely. But I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And again, it's my style. I just tell them directly. I say, look, I'm going to trust that you take care of my clients, but you only get one chance with me. And if you make a mistake or make me look bad once, then that's the end of our referral relationship. It's that simple. And people are responsive, and they respond and they say, yeah, that makes sense. And I say, look, if I do that, if I make you look bad, you have every right to fire me as a referral partner. So in the South, that catches people off guard because most people are they're not as direct as I am. Probably, where you live, it's probably not as, unique. But I think it speaks volumes about you as an advisor if you're really trying to vet them and they understand that and they're trying to vet you, or at least they should be. But you don't want to be affiliated with somebody that doesn't want to grow. You don't want to be affiliated with somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. If I know more about property and casualty insurance than they do, that's not a good fit.
Right.
So I also put a lot of weight on service. And so I'll ask them a very simple question. How quickly do you respond to your customers or client requests? What is your standard operating procedure? And if they don't have a very finite, crisp answer, I'm going to dive even deep. Like if they say something like, oh, well, we just kind of, get to it whenever, maybe a couple days, then I'm going to dig deeper and go, okay, well, let's understand that. So is it a couple of days? Is it a week? I want to really hammer that, because if they're not responding to my email introductions or text introductions to the clients within 24 hours, that's unacceptable.
Right.
That's just not, we're not going to jive very well. So that's a very big thing that you got to understand. You have to understand how quickly they respond.
How are you evaluating on an ongoing basis the success of your particular referral partners? So do you measure it based on revenue passed back and forth, referrals passed back and forth? How are you actually, deciding to continue to work with someone or getting rid of someone after you two have already agreed to pass business back and forth?
My general rule of thumb is I give the relationship a full 12 months, so a year. So I'll give it a full year, because nothing ever happens overnight. It takes time. But I also know that here's the danger. You got to be careful of keeping score. If you're sitting there and, let's say you and I are referral partners, and I'm sitting here going, man, I've sent Dave 14 referrals, and that SOB hasn't sent me any. That's not good. Trust me, I fell into that trap of keeping score. And what happens, you put yourself in a negative mindset because you're resentful.
Right.
So rather than keep score, it's really just a feel thing for me. If after 12 months, I've consistently kept, let's say, an attorney in mind for wills and real estate closings, for example. And if after 12 months, I can just off the top of my head say, you know what, I think I've sent him 12 to 15 referrals. If I can't recall a referral that he sent me within, 30 seconds, then he probably didn't.
Right.
So then I call him up, or I send him an email. I say, let's grab a cup of coffee. We sit back down together after a year. And I say, look, I haven't kept score, but it seems a little one-sided. What are your thoughts? What can I be doing better to help you identify folks that I can help? What can I be doing? Because here's the reality of it. Other professionals, like a CPA or an attorney, unfortunately, they tend to be not as hungry as we are. Meaning that their way of giving a referral is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, do you guys have a financial advisor? And what do you think most people say? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then what does the attorney say? Oh, okay, never mind.
Right.
Whereas if I actually take some time to coach them, I say, hey, look, here's how I'm going to tee you up. Dave, I'm going to introduce you to Joe. Joe's a good attorney I know. He's going to help you and your wife set up a will. Notice that I didn't ask a question.
Right.
I said, here's what's going to happen. And I linked and I connect them on an email so that, everybody knows everybody's info. But what that does is that trains the referral partner to go, oh, yeah, well, that's actually a good idea. Like I'm going to start doing this, because I have a lot of people that'll say to me, oh, well, I gave so-and-so your card. Did they call you?
No.
Nobody calls me. And so that's when I step back and I say, hey, let me tell you what works the best. And I say, an email with copying me on an email is perfect, or a group text is perfect. They know that I'm calling, et cetera. Everybody's comfortable. But see, you have to put a little wood in the stove first. In other words, don't expect something for nothing. And so usually in that meeting, like if I'm sitting down with you, you're a home and auto insurance agent, and we're meeting, and I realize in the meeting, hey, you know what? Dave's a good guy. This is going to work. We're jiving. This is good to go. I'll literally say, hey, you know what? Let me look at my LinkedIn real quick. I think I got a few clients that need to shop their home, and I'll literally give them referrals right then and there
on the spot.
And the look on their face is like, what? They don't know what hit them. They don't know what hit them.
Right.
And it sets the tone. They're like, wow, okay, this guy's serious. Now we're going to keep him top of mind, and we're going to try to identify folks that he needs help. Because like for a bank, most banks have their wealth department. And so you got to educate them on, well, here's where I can be a fit. Well, to educate them on that, you have to understand where their limitations on the wealth management side are.
Mm-hmm.
For example, most banks, those wealth manager guys, they're not going to mess with anything under $500,000 or $250,000. So I tell them, I'm like, look, here's where I'm a great fit. You got somebody that comes in at 240 or 490, and your wealth management guy that won't mess with it. That's a great fit for us. So you just have to do a little bit extra homework, and you'd be amazed what people will tell you. If you just simply ask that question, hey, what are your wealth department's minimums?
So what I'm hearing from you is it's about, one of the main things is educating them on basically how to tee you up and how to identify prospects. And it seems like where you've had maybe not as much success as in scenarios where they may have wanted to help, they just didn't know how they could send you business appropriately.
That's exactly right. And so that's why I think it's so important to educate them on how an ideal referral process looks. And it also carries a lot of weight. If you, again, assuming they're good people and assuming you have clients that they can help, giving them referrals in the first meeting, it really sets the tone how things are going to go. Because eventually they're gonna say, man, I really, Kurt sent me so and so and so and so, and I really need to get him a referral. That's where the magic starts to happen when that becomes inbound. When folks
they almost feel indebted to you because you've added so much value.
Right, but again, it takes time, and you've got to put you got to put the wood in the stove to get heat. I mean, it just takes time.
Right.
So anyway, so that's how I would approach like the referral partners. And just know this, that most other professions, attorneys, CPAs, PNC agents, whatever, most of them are not going to give you referrals on a 1-to-1 ratio. It's just not going to work that way. Mm-hmm. If you're really getting after it and you're doing high activity and you're seeing 20 to 25 people a week, most professionals don't have that many meetings. So you're going to have more shots on goal than they are.
Right.
And that's what I noticed here is that people are asking me like, well, how are you giving us all these referrals? I'm like, I don't know. I guess I have more meetings than you.
I'm busy.
Yes. I mean, if you're in front of a lot of people, but one way and this might be a good transition into the networking stuff, one way to meet those referral partners is at networking events, because that gives you in person 5 to 10 minutes to talk to somebody and hit all the high points and figure out, hey, does it even make sense to have coffee?
Right. So let's talk about that. So strategy number 1 is establishing appropriate referral partners. Okay.
Yes.
In other various, professions, attorneys, CPAs, bankers, so on and so forth. Right.
Yes.
So in networking events, okay, are you going to formalize networking events? Are you going to more like social / happy hour type events, both? And like, what's your opening line? How are you facilitating those conversations? How are you building rapport immediately? Besides, obviously, your shining personality.
my shiny forehead because I'm sweating. I'm just kidding. So the short answer is both. So 6 years ago when I first started, I would not go to anything that was informal. Now I go to all kinds of informal things because sometimes people just need to see your face at a community type events. And that's all they just want to see your face consistently. So from a formal networking standpoint, I do all the chamber after hours, Chamber of Commerce after hours. Most chambers have like a monthly after hours and they have a monthly breakfast meeting, most of them.
Yeah.
And so I'll definitely go to both of those for sure. Any other events that kind of pop up, on the calendar. At the end of the day, like if you're in a larger city or a bigger metro area, there's something going on every day.
Right.
You just got to look for it. You got to look for it. And so the chambers are really good. In our area, there's 4 main chambers. I don't know how many, it kind of varies by geography, but chambers are a great place to meet people.
Can you sort of rid us of, I'm sure there's a lot of people a part of the group and a lot of people that are listening. And at certain points in my career, myself included, that had a negative connotation associated with chamber events, BNIs, like stuff like that. So can you help rid us of those thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to a networking event and you stand against the wall and don't do anything, then it's not going to be a good experience. You're wasting your time. You have to work. And so, yes, you're going to see the same people at these things. Yes, you're going to have to sit there and listen to so-and-so pitch their crazy idea that you've heard 14 times that you think is ridiculous. Yes, you're going to have to do that. But the point of it is, though, is I think if you go in there with the mindset of, I'm going to make a bunch of clients, you're going there for the wrong reason.
Okay.
It's not. And that's the issue, I think, is a lot of folks are going in there and it's all me, when they really should be going, look, this is a chance for me to build relationships with other referral partners. And if I happen to meet a prospect, great. But that's not my sole reason for going. You have to, if you tell yourself you're going there to get clients, then forget about it. Don't go. Because that's not what the event's designed for. It's designed to network. It's designed to build relationships.
Well, I think part of it too is, in my belief with social media and leveraging your message through those various platforms, what it comes down to is relevance. And when you go to those events and there's 20 people there, 150 people there, or somewhere in between, you're maintaining your relevance to what you said earlier, right? It's kind of just going in there for FaceTime. So people can see your face and associate you with the industry that you represent and adding value. And I think it just comes down to you being relevant. So whether you get something out of a particular meeting or not, having people see that you're there just maintains your overall relevance in their world.
That's right. And if you go to them consistently, you begin to know everybody, so that if you have, like, for example, a potential client who you say, hey, look, you just started up a business, or you've been in business for a couple of years. Why don't you come check out this chamber thing? I don't know anybody. It's going to be weird. Look, I've been going for a couple of years. I know a bunch of people. I'd be happy to introduce you. That's a great way to build some rapport with that potential client, because what are they used to people doing? They're used to getting called from everybody trying to sell them something. If all of a sudden you don't sell them anything and you say, look, I want to introduce you to 5 or 10 people in my network at this event that might help your business, they're going, man, this is great. But what do you think they eventually do? Hey, it might be 30 days, it might be 90 days, it might not be for a year. Hey, I was thinking, I had a guy that does my 401k, but trust me, I get these conversations all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my future life, I would have been like hammering on. Like, hey, let's, but I learned over the years that
your past life.
Yeah, my past life. Here's the other tip: is the follow through. It doesn't do you any good if you just go to a bunch of events and shake a bunch of hands and get a bunch of cards. That means absolutely nothing.
So what's the follow through look like?
Here's the follow through. Here's what it looks like on our end. So within 24 hours. So if I meet, my goal every time I go to an event is to meet 5 new people that could be potential referral partners.
Okay.
Or clients, but I'm really not looking for the clients thing. The 5 new people that I've never met. That's my goal. So the way I look at it is that's like 10 to 15 minutes per person, hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm done. Within 24 hours, so I've got 5 business cards. Within 24 hours, they've got a LinkedIn request for me. They've got a Facebook request for me. I've already taken a picture of their business card with my phone I've got an app called Camcard.
Yep.
Saves the data in my phone. I then email that to Tiffany, my office manager. She gets a little small handwritten note ready to go to that person. We've got a note in the mail within 24 hours. Hey, Dave, great to talk to you last week at the blah, blah, blah event. Look forward to catching up soon. So within 24 hours, they've gotten LinkedIn, Facebook, an email from me saying, hey, great to see you. Let's connect next week. And then when a few days later, they get a handwritten note. They're going, who the hell is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
You want to, like you said, you want to stay relevant. And you know what? That little handwritten note takes me 30 seconds and costs me 47 cents.
Well, and it's almost like, sometimes people are quote unquote bad with names, right? And until they say their name 5 times or whatever is when they start remembering them. So someone may meet you and may have had a great conversation, but they also met 12 other people that day. So they may not recall your name, but then when they see it 3, 4, 5 different times over a 3 to maybe 7 day period because of the online stuff, and then depending on when the mail gets to them and they actually open it, that mail is sort of like the, pun intended, I guess, stamp of approval, where they're like, okay, now, like, they're not going to forget your name at that point.
You're exactly right. And so that's, but the other thing is, don't forget their name. Nothing's worse than like, oh yeah, and I've made that mistake. So it also helps you remember their name too, and that they will absolutely remember you. So in their mind, they're going to think, wow, this person is serious about what they do. They did what they said they're going to do. Because I tell people, look, you're going to get an email from me in the morning. It's probably going to be really early. And they get one. And they're like, oh, he wasn't just, full of it.
Because people say that type of stuff all the time and don't follow through.
And don't follow all the time. Exactly. You're exactly right. And so all of a sudden now, here's the other nice thing about connecting with them on Facebook and LinkedIn. Guess what? You get notified when it's their birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll look on Facebook in the mornings, it's so-and-so's birthday, I'll call them. Even if it's a referral, I'll call them. Hey, just want to wish you happy birthday. Even if they never send me a referral, still call them. Takes me 10 seconds. They don't answer, I'll text them.
Yeah.
But it's just those little things it's just effort. They don't cost any money.
So then you go from that to backtracking to a prior part of our conversation where you then enter them into the referral partner process, if you will, where it's scheduling time to meet with them, building rapport, giving referrals, so on and so forth, 12 months sort of.
Bingo. That's exactly. Or if we have such a great conversation at the event, I may just schedule a meeting there right when I'm in front of them.
Okay.
I may just say, hey, you got your phone, I got mine. Let's just get something on the books.
Yeah.
So what that'll do, again, that'll just increase that number of connections on social media that you can go in and say, hey, I see you're connected to Steve, Jim, Bob, and how do you know all these folks? Just curious. Then you start getting, people start knowing who you are. That way, when you call somebody, they're like, who is this guy?
Right.
Well, he's a good guy.
Cool. So we got referral partners. We have networking events that turn into referral partners. For someone who's just starting off in the career, how else are you suggesting that they focus on building their business? For example, getting additional referrals or maybe navigating through their natural market.
Perfect. So I would say, again, this is just my humble opinion. I would take that spreadsheet or whatever you have that's got all these names on it that they made you do, and I would throw it away. Because the people on there that you think are going to become clients are probably never going to become clients. And the ones that you think that don't have a chance of becoming a client become clients. It's crazy. I don't know why it works that way, but it does. The reason I say that, though, is getting rid of that quote unquote warm market, because you can have all kinds of coffee meetings with your warm market and feel great, but get nothing done.
Now, but to play devil's advocate, don't you think it's your duty, it's your obligation to make the people that are close with you aware of the type of work that you do. So, say a worst case scenario happens, they get screwed over by their investment advisor that could have been you and take care of them, or they get sick or hurt or, pass away and you didn't have, the systems in place to reach out to them and contact them. So I think I don't think what you're saying is to, not reach out to them, but I think what you're saying is, navigate through that in a way that you're probably going to share in a second, but also go and cultivate brand new relationships as well, like we had just talked about. So just dive a little bit deeper into navigating through a warm market, because I could be wrong, but I don't think that you're saying like, don't call your aunts and uncles.
Right. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Let me clarify. What I mean by that is don't try to sell your warm market. In other words, make them aware of what you do, because it's awkward. It's really tough and awkward to work with friends and family. Trust me, you're talking to a guy that, worked with my brother-in-law for 5.5 years at Northwestern. So I've experienced that of what the downside of that.
Right.
So anyway, but I do think it makes a lot of sense to make your warm market aware of what you do, and simply make it an educational session and tell them on the phone, look, I'd love for you to become a client. That's not why I'm calling. I just want you to understand what we do here at, fill in the blank.
But then you have to follow through on that promise and leave your sales hat in the car when you actually do meet with them. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up, is the old bait and switch type move, where they say whatever they need to say to get the appointment. And at the end of the day, they're trying to get them to buy something in that appointment.
Exactly. And you definitely want to keep it to what you said you're going to do. Just keep it very, high level, educate them on the process and how you help. And that's it. Where I was going with all that, though, is really figuring out, what you're passionate about, what's your pastime, what do you enjoy doing, and what I mean by that is, by identifying that, go out and volunteer. Every organization under the sun needs volunteers, every one of them. So in my community in Aiken, South Carolina, there's a big polo and equine industry, huge. Well, they can't find enough volunteers at these horse stables. I don't know anything about horses, nothing.
So you just go there and you're like, I'll shovel shit.
Well, it's not quite that bad. I told them up front, I'm like, look, I'll help. I don't know what I'm doing. If you educate me and coach me on what to do, I'll do it. And so I've done that over the past 3 months at one of the places here locally. Now, have I made a bunch of clients off of that? No. I haven't made any clients off of that. I may not make any for the next year, but it is building relationships in that particular industry I want to be in, so that if people talk about me, they're going, yeah, he volunteers out at, Stableview, and he volunteers over at the polo fields, and so also volunteering at these nonprofits. United Way, they need help. Any local food banks, trust me, like, people see that. And the big movers and shakers in the community, guess who they're involved with? Nonprofits, philanthropists. So if all of a sudden you start showing up at all these events, and you have to be genuine. I'm not saying like go in there and be genuine about it. But again, it goes back to what motivates you. Like for me, I got a problem telling people no. Right now I sit on 5 boards. I probably shouldn't do that, but I just kind of go with the flow. They ask me to do it, so I say okay. But it's like I sit on a couple of boards that have to do with equine, but I also sit on the United Way board, and I sit on an arts board, Arts and Heritage Center. That's the industries that I wanted to target coming into 2018. I wanted to target the arts community, the equine, and the polo industries.
And think about that. 6 months in, you're already becoming a mover and a shaker in those spaces just by showing your face. And I'd be curious to check in with you in another 6 months and see what actually comes of that, because not only are you going to be able to network and build rapport with individuals that are involved in those same walks of life, but also and I see it on Facebook and other social media platforms that you're doing a pretty good job with documenting that process as well, and sort of putting that stuff out online, and you're staying relevant with your Facebook page and sharing relevant articles and bits of information, and you're basically utilizing those opportunities to perpetuate your brand as a giver, right? As a professional, as someone who's relevant. And I'm sure that you either have or, soon will have people reaching out to you because they kind of know who you are based on what they see online.
That's exactly right. And you said it. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. It is more about branding. And I think that's, our industry sometimes struggles with that because we tend to be a little bit more old school, the prospecting and, it's very numbers oriented when in reality, I think if you just focus on building those relationships and again, you have to be genuine about it, but people know when you're genuine and you know what? You would be amazed at the calls that you will get and unsolicited, from these folks that you're volunteering with. And there may not even be much business that you talk. They just happen to know what I do.
Right.
Very rarely, it's very rare that I tell somebody what I do unsolicited. Most times it's them asking.
Hey, what do you do? Right.
Yeah. So but the other thing I'll say about the social media platforms and connecting with them is having a business Facebook page, I think is really important. And so by connecting with those referral partners, it also allows you to invite them to like your page, which again, just increases the branding and awareness.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
It's, 2 seconds.
So we've talked about 3 main points as it relates to prospecting and building your network of prospects. It's referral partners, it's networking, and it's volunteering, which I think networking is sort of the overarching theme. So specifically what I meant by that is networking events. So that's from a prospecting standpoint. Before we wrap up, I want to go through like some quick hits, like little one-liners for someone who's just starting in the business that they should be writing down. They should be, treating like it's sacred, whether it's certain activity mottos or something like that. So let's kind of walk through some of those quick hits that people need to know and need to put in practice. And I'll start it off, but I think that one of the most important things that any new advisor, heck, any veteran advisor, anyone of any profession should be doing, and I'm a big believer in this because it's how I've totally shifted my business and my mindset, is all about planning out your day the night before, so that you can identify and maximize on the opportunities that are in front of you and ultimately create momentum, which in turn creates some confidence and ultimately some motivation to do more than what you had set out to do initially. And it just comes from taking that consistent action, but you can't take action, of course, unless you plan out what that action is. So for all new advisors and really anyone out there, if you're not planning your day in advance, you are leaving money on the table. You are less effective than you could be, compared to actually planning those things in advance. But I guess, what do you have up your sleeve that you could share?
So I would say take it back even further than that. It all goes back to the why. Why are you doing this? I mean, that's something that everybody that's watching this has to sit there and really reflect on. I don't think you can answer that in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It may take you a weekend, it may take you 3 months, but there's got to be a reason that you're doing this career, this profession. It's a very good profession. We have an extremely high attrition rate over a 5-year time window, and so there's a reason why. And I would suspect that it has a lot more to do with, deep down than simply, well, I just want to make a bunch of money.
Right.
I mean, that could be a great answer, but I don't think that's the why.
It could be lifestyle. It could be impacting the people around you. It could, whatever it may be.
But if you can take that why and then articulate that to 2 people on an elevator or 2,000 people in a room, that is what will make you very relevant and very memorable, because they're expecting you to try to sell something. Right. And you're sitting there and you're being vulnerable. And psychologically, when another human being is vulnerable with someone that they don't know, guess what the other person's thinking? They're going, they're being vulnerable with me. My defensive wall is coming down.
Right.
And so, I'm not going to sit there and give my whole life story if I'm on an elevator, but if somebody says, like you asked for some nuggets, well, you got to have an elevator pitch in the story. And it better not be, well, I'm a financial advisor. That's boring and they're immediately shutting you down when they hear the word financial.
All right, so I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yes.
What's yours?
So if somebody says, hey, what do you do? I say, I help people make fantastic decisions with their money.
Short and simple and different.
And guess what? They have to ask me what that is, because nobody's going to go, oh, okay. They're going to be like, what do you mean? So you got to be a little bit vague.
And then you say, oh, I'm a financial advisor. No,
no, I say I'm a financial architect.
What did you say?
I tell them I'm a financial architect.
Financial architect. There you go.
So again, what are they going to do? They're going to say, what's that? Never heard of that. Oh, well, it's kind of like a financial advisor, but better.
I love it. And the point is that it almost doesn't matter what it is that you're saying. It just matters that it's different, interesting, and generates some sort of response that you can interact with someone longer than an elevator ride.
Bingo. You want, whatever the answer is, you want them to ask a question. If you say, I'm a financial advisor, they're going to go, oh, okay. That's it.
Oh, I already have one.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah, and if they say that, by the way, here's a good little comeback that's like very what's the word? Very, very easy to use. If somebody says, if you're like, hey, I'm Kurt, and they say, what do you do? And then they find out you're a financial advisor within like 10 seconds, they go, I already have one. My response is, well, most of my clients that are of your caliber have two. And they laugh. That's exactly what they did. I did that to a lady. We were at eating dinner, and one of our friends says, oh, yeah, this is Kurt. He's a financial advisor. And this other lady goes, oh, we already have one. Like, kind of, little snarky. And so I said, well, most folks that are of your caliber have two. And everybody started laughing. But I mean, you got to, you got to, it's all in what your style is. Like, that's just my style. I like to kind of walk the line there. But I think, so to answer your question about the nuggets, the elevator pitch is really important. Make it unique, make it you, make it different. Don't make it canned.
Yeah.
The why is the big one. Figuring out your why and then articulating that, putting that down in writing and really working on it so you can, at a drop of a hat, articulate that very briefly to somebody, capture their attention, and be vulnerable at the same time. They'll remember who you are. And so that's why, folks remember me, because I tell them my story. I'm like, yeah, my parents never saved a dime. And my brother is dying of leukemia, and I didn't do enough to get him life insurance. That's what I tell people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the truth. And so they're like, man, this guy's like, he's legit. He's serious about this. Yeah.
He's passionate.
You gotta show them the passion. Yeah. If they smell the commission breath, you're done. You're cooked.
Right.
And believe me, I've had plenty of commission breath in my day.
And I would, just to wrap it up and give a little commercial for one of our master classes coming up. We're going to be talking all about activity, but I think especially when you're new in the business, high activity creates low anxiety.
That's right.
And low activity creates high anxiety. So the more people you see, the busier you are, the less important in your mind those meetings become. So if someone cancels, it doesn't ruin your day. If anything, it gives you breathing room for your other 5 appointments that day. But over the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing an episode that's all about where your activity numbers should be, especially in your first 5 years, because I think that a lot of various firms really misguide us on what they're setting us up for failure based on the activity that they're recommending.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more on that. It's hard to get out maximum results with minimum effort. Mm-hmm. And so, one easy thing to do is, if you're new in the business and you have a meeting rescheduled or canceled at the last minute, just tell yourself, anytime that happens, you're going to call 15 people. That's 15 phone calls you have to make in an hour. That's 4 minutes per call. That's easy to do. If you do that every time something reschedules and just are disciplined to do that, you really can't lose. I think the other thing too is not getting caught up in the weekly, the monthly stuff. Focus day by day.
Yep.
Whatever that daily driver is, you might talk about this more in the training, but just figuring out, okay, I'm going to come hell or high water, I'm going to schedule 3 new meetings on the phone every day, every working day.
Because if you do it on a weekly basis, what happens is it's okay to give yourself a pass on a Tuesday, and then you get to Friday, realize everyone's cutting out early on the day that you planned on making up for not following through on a daily basis. And then you end up losing the freaking week because you were looking at too long of a time frame. It needs to be daily.
That's exactly right.
It
Yep.
needs to be daily. And another thing that your dialing suggestion made me think of, and I would replace the word dialing with outreach or touch points or something like that, because I think that dialing has evolved into phone calls, text messages, messages on various social media platforms, emails, etc. So one thing that I would do if I had like 7 or 8 appointments on a day and I didn't have time to dial, what I would do is I would just commit to reaching out to 5 people before I walked into that particular meeting. And you figure you have 7 meetings on where you do that. That's 35 touch points, but it didn't feel like a lot because they were just in 5 piece increments.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So it's just kind
Great
of
idea.
playing that internal game, challenging yourself. Because at the end of the day, we're in business for ourselves. So if you can't have fun, if you can't hold yourself accountable, or you don't have the people in place to hold you accountable, like it's not going to work out, right? You got to have that discipline to follow through, even when you're in your car, no one else is around, and you feel okay with letting yourself down. Like that's not okay.
Right. Yeah. Self-discipline is one of the hardest things to learn. There's no question.
Yeah, I agree. So awesome. Well, we went through a lot today. Kurt, I know that you'll be back at some point soon. For those of you who haven't, Kurt quite often will either make a post in the group or comment under one of my posts. He's shared his contact information. He's happy and willing to help with little one-off questions or pieces of advice and things like that. So if you have not taken him up on that, feel free to do so. He wouldn't be putting his number out there if he wasn't open to a phone call or a text message. So for those of you who haven't taken advantage of that, please do so. I know that he'd be happy to help and give back to the group. So Kurt, again, thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Dave.
All right, peace.